according to a shocking new report, former Hawaii Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard was placed on a terror watch list and was surveilled by teams of government agents. Federal Air Marshal whistleblower told Uncover DC that Gabbard was placed in the Quiet Skies program on July 23rd. That's a sinister name. For context, Quiet Skies is a TSA surveillance program that targets passengers who are not included in any terrorist database. According to the TSA, Quiet Skies is, quote, another tool that allows the Federal Air Marshal Service to more efficiently deploy law enforcement resources to focus on travelers who may present an elevated risk to aviation security. Uncover said that on every flight Gabbard boards, there are now 2 explosive detection canine teams, 1 transportation security specialist, 1 plainclothes TSA supervisor, and 3 federal air marshals.
Gabbard reacted to Uncover DC's report on Fox News. Let's watch that.
The very next day after my conversation with you on the air, warning the American people about how dangerous a Kamala Harris presidency would be, I was placed on this domestic terror watch list, which is called the Quiet Skies list under the Department of Homeland Security. The clear pain and real visceral hurt that comes from this is, as you mentioned, like many Americans, I enlisted because of the terrorist attacks on 9/11 to go after the Islamist terrorists who attacked us on that day, and to now have my own government now turn around and put me on a domestic terror watch list. It hits to the core and is the ultimate sense of betrayal. But we look at why they are doing this. It has a chilling effect. It sends a warning both to me and to anyone else who even thinks about daring to criticize our own government, which is a guaranteed protected right under the First Amendment.
Yeah.
That we will be subject to a violation of our Fourth Amendment right to privacy through this kind of surveillance. And that's the biggest stress that's been caused by this entire situation, Laura, is now forever. I will always be looking over my shoulder, wondering if and how our government in any of these different agencies is surveilling me, watching me.
Gabbard also told Matt Taibbi of Racket News that she has encountered numerous obstacles when flying. With us now to discuss all of this terrifying news, is Matt Taibbi himself, who wrote a terrific piece about Gabbard's ordeal and the Quiet Skies program. You can read that at Racket News. Matt, thank you so much for being back with us on Rising.
No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So this sounds like something straight out of Orwell. It's called Quiet Skies. Obviously, we've heard a little bit about it in the past, but this is the first, I think, high-profile person to be ensnared in it. Why don't you start by recapping what you heard from Tulsi herself about the really dramatic, and she is by no means the only victim of this program, but really obnoxious protocols put in place for her extensive travel.
Yeah, I think the first thing that people need to realize is that Quiet Skies is not, some kind of fantasy that's been cooked up at the edges of the internet or anything like that. The story, the existence of the program was disclosed 6 years ago in 2018. It came out in the Boston Globe. There was significant coverage of it back then. There were hearings in the Senate. Senator Ed Markey questioned the head of the TSA at the time, who admitted that thousands of Americans who were not even suspected of crimes were being followed under the program. There was a significant acceleration of the program after January 6th, when a number of people who were either in attendance inside the Capitol or just at the speech that day were placed in the program. And the major issue with this Quiet Skies program is that it places a significant amount of government resources and air marshal personnel to follow people, but they're not trying to develop cases. They are just conducting surveillance. So this is a major problem with a lot of the stuff that happens in the war on terror programs. Because of that, they never have to justify, they never have to prove probable cause. And we don't know why, for instance, somebody like Tulsi Gabbard would be placed under surveillance, but we do know that Quiet Skies is very excessive in terms of the number of people who are assigned to each selectee. That's what they call them. It's up to 3 marshals per flight. If you have 3 flights in a day, that will be 9 marshals. There can be as many as 15 people in an airport following a single person, plus canine sniffing, bomb sniffing dogs, which Tulsi was aware of. So it's a remarkable program.
So Quiet Skies, according to the TSA's website, they say it's another tool that allows Federal Air Marshal Service to more efficiently deploy law enforcement resources to focus on travelers who may present an elevated risk to aviation security. Is it possible that Tulsi Gabbard has been rather the victim of threats than perceived as a threat herself?
It's possible. When I reached out to the TSA, they sent me back a pro forma letter when I asked if she was even in the program. They essentially sent back a form letter saying, well, there are a variety of reasons a person can be matched to this program. It can mean anything. Your presence in the program doesn't automatically designate derogatory information. So we don't know exactly what it means. It could be somebody just sort of subjectively deciding that person is a threat and designating them a domestic terror threat. But I think from Tulsi's point of view, she sees it as threatening and certainly as harassing. And I think possibly the program is designed to produce that effect in people. It's designed to make people feel that they're under surveillance.
Well, and she gets the quadruple S's on her boarding pass, which that stands for secondary security screening selection. And then she gets even more aggressive. And, this just started happening to her since she got placed on the Quiet Skies thing. She gets aggressive pat downs. I've been complaining that the pat downs at Ronald Reagan Airport, TSA in Washington have gotten just absurdly violating of your personal space. But she's getting, they're going over all of her luggage, what she says she travels light, thank goodness, but that they're going through all her, personal items and everything. So if she's this is not a way that you treat someone who's like a target of a safety or something. It's no, they're treating her like a threat. It's just, this is insane. This is completely insane. In addition to the civil liberties violations, the time and money this must be costing to run this kind of surveillance on people where they have a designated. For what reason? What do they expect? Isn't that what the ordinary TSA is for? To make sure no weapons supposedly are getting onto flights. But now there's an extra level of bureaucratic safety that costs a fortune, complete with dogs and all that. Well, what's the normal stuff for then?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And as Tulsi herself pointed out to me, if they really thought that she was an elevated threat for, something like a hijacking or a bombing of a plane, then why are they letting her on a plane at all?
Right.
That's a very strange question. You talked about the waste. There's actually an Inspector General report about Quiet Skies that was published in 2020, I believe, 2019 or 2020, that concluded that in the year they examined, the budget for the air marshals was $804 million, and they concluded that $394 million of that could have been, quote, better spent. So you're talking about an enormous sum of money that is being allocated to these missions where, yes, you have to have multiple marshals at every point of travel, and they even have to have people standing by for contingencies, like if somebody's on a wait list for a flight, they have to get extra marshals for that. They follow people in and out of the plane. They go to see if they mark down if they're going to the bathroom, what they eat.
Oh my God.
What is all this for? Why are they doing this? It's in keeping with this, again, it's in keeping with this new conception of what the federal enforcement mechanism does, which is it is strictly an intelligence gathering and surveillance operation. Very often, it's not going towards trying to prosecute somebody for a crime like terrorism or conspiracy.
Is this like a psychological experiment or something? This is like in Lost, the people in the Pearl hatch that have to just watch the other people in the hatch and fill as many notebooks until they go insane. That's what it sounds like. This is crazy.
I think
Sorry to cut you off, Jessica.
To note that, Tulsi Gabbard is someone that's been known for having ties with far-right leadership in India. She makes frequent commentary on foreign affairs. She says things that make me believe she would be a heightened target, and that could put other passengers at risk on the plane. But as Tulsi put it, it seems that she does not believe this was because she's, the victim of threats or she's someone that is a target. She said she's on the domestic terrorist list now. Does she have evidence of this? How did she find this out?
So this is an important question. I think you're asking a good question, because the reason this came out at all is two air marshals came forward. They came forward to an Air Marshals Association that it's not a union, but it sort of represents the interests of air marshals and things like workers' comp complaints and whistleblower complaints. And there have been a lot about this program dating back to 2018. This is the original reason this program got disclosed, is because some air marshals were not happy with following Americans who were not suspecting with crimes, and they went to the Boston Globe initially. There was another whistleblower complaint that came out a couple of years ago when an agent in the TSA found out that his own wife was on the list and protested, made a protected disclosure about that. Now we have two people who were involved in this mission, one of whom was actually conducting physical surveillance of Tulsi Gabbard, who reportedly came forward through this association and are negotiating now with who's going to represent them. Now, a number of people in this story have talked to those marshals, including, I believe, Tulsi herself. So there are two whistleblowers by multiple accounts. The question is, what exactly did they know, apart from the fact that there was a mission involving Tulsi Gabbard? We don't know that yet. We don't know why she would be on a list. We don't know why there would be surveillance. There have been instances in the past where there have been mistakes. If you remember, a long time ago, Senator Ted Kennedy was put on a watch list in an earlier non-TSA context. But yes, the source of the story is basically these two marshals, and also Tulsi Gabbard herself reporting the behavior, and then comparing notes with the agents themselves.
And what's important to realize here is that these protocols do not have to follow any kind of, well, they ought to, but they don't have to follow, or their view is that they don't have to follow due process guidelines, because they're not arresting any of these people or bringing charges. This is just extra watching, extra surveillance. So it's not comporting with any kind of criminal justice standards for due process. It's opaque how you get on it or how you would get off it. I mean, this is also broadly true of the no-fly list in general, something that has been complained, civil liberties advocates have complained many times, that people end up on it for mistaken reasons because they have similar sounding names to known suspected terrorists. The American intelligence authorities not being able to tell one Muhammad apart from another or something like that. Really embarrassing stuff on our part that violates people's civil liberties on the time. So this seems like another manifestation of that. Do we have any evidence that this program, this incredibly expensive program and disruptive program, have they successfully screened out any terrorists or something? Is that, and Tulsi, by the way, doesn't even have, as far as I know, a January 6th connection. If this is about, for some reason, watching everyone who was at the Capitol that day.
Yeah, she doesn't, which makes this a little bit more mysterious. Also the dates a little bit mysterious. She was ostensibly put on July 23rd, which is a day after she gave a pretty aggressive interview criticizing the administration's policies in Ukraine. It's also right after Kamala Harris became the presumptive nominee. But, Robbie, you're absolutely right. The key thing to understand about this program and about a lot of other programs, including, by the way, the kill list, which is the worst list of all, which is that they're not intending to go to court. So this never has to be reviewed by anybody. There's no process between putting somebody on a list and having some kind of body review the evidentiary standard that causes a person to come under increased surveillance or be selected for more aggressive activity, right? Including a no-fly list, or even what they call lethal action. There isn't a review. There is a due process that is internal, but it's not the kind that we traditionally understand, and that's why these programs, I think, are so dangerous, because they sort of run counter to our basic understanding of how these things work in America. Yes, we've always had wiretaps, but they have to go before a judge who has to say that it meets some kind of legal standard. That doesn't happen if you're not planning to go to court. And these things, are designed to kind of stay in the shadows, and they're just collecting information. Is that good? Is that the kind of country we want to have? I'm not sure. I think that's kind of scary.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the right words to signal to our viewers that this goes well above and beyond the normal bad things we're reporting on. This is an egregious, scary, wasteful, poorly substantiated by evidence or need. And thank you so much for calling attention on it and reporting on it. I'm sure we'll be talking about it a lot in the coming weeks. Matt Taibbi, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.